My name is Raul Carvajal. I am the Senior Project Manager at Agog, and I'm very excited to be here with you all today. Just as a reminder, this is our monthly event series. We're featuring speakers that are doing impactful work with immersive tech, and our event today is a sneak peek into Tribeca Immersive. We're super excited to have partnered with Tribeca and Onassis ONX to co-present 11 awesome projects, which were actually just recently unveiled. You're going to hear from the program's curators, Casey Baltes and Jazia Hammoudi. And it'll, of course, also be moderated by our friend and advisor, Loren Hammonds. Super excited about this. So you're in for a treat. Just a couple of reminders about Tribeca Immersive at the top. It'll be running in New York from June 6 to 15. And there also will be extended weekends, June 21 to 22, as well as June 28th to 29. And those immersive tickets are actually open to the public and available now. So check them out if you can. We've also got a blog on the Agog website with a bunch more information and featuring the projects themselves and some more information about the festival just generally. So be sure to check that out at agog.org. So before we invite our speakers on stage, I'll just mention a bit more about our organization and what we're up to. Agog is a philanthropic organization, and our purpose is to help people use XR to imagine and build a better world. We help creators and organizations using XR for good with an emphasis on climate change, food justice, indigenous knowledge, and human rights. And our work involves connecting folks and convening them, particularly XR creators, social change leaders, and other mission-based folks. We also support creators with philanthropic grants and technical support. And of course, we're also a sharing and learning organization. So we want to share whatever we learn as we go, and we'll have more open source resources over the course of our lifetime. You can totally stay updated on our work by signing up for a newsletter. A bunch of you are already members, I know. You'll find that on our website as well, agog.org. And I'm very excited to be launching a soft launch of our community Discord server. That's happening today. After the event, everyone here should receive an email with an invite to that server. So we totally encourage you to join there and let us know what's up. A couple of reminders just as we get into the session. We're going to be opening up for a Q&A at the end of the talk. So please, if you wouldn't mind just keeping your questions focused on the program in general as opposed to any particular project. We'll also be doing an informal mixer during the last 15-20 minutes of this session, which we've noticed a bunch of folks like to kind of hang out after the talk. We're going to build that into the hour from now on. So you can expect some informal mixing time after the session. And also, this is your space as our community. We're super eager to get feedback on not just our programming, but just the use of this world in general. We'll be sending out a survey after the session where y'all can let us know some of your thoughts. But please, if you see anybody from Agog, feel free to come up to us and let us know any thoughts you may have on that front. I'll also preview an event that we're going to be doing in just 2 weeks. Usually we run these monthlies, but we're actually going to have 2 in May. The next is going to be on May 29th, and we're going to feature Black public media and speakers from this year's Pitch Black Forum, which is the largest competition of its kind for U.S. independent filmmakers and creative technologists whose content reflects the Black experience. And we'll have a really great panel for you in a couple of weeks. Now, on to the main show. Really, really pleased to welcome our speakers. We've got Casey Baltes, the Vice President of Tribeca Games and Immersive at Tribeca Enterprises, Jazia Hammoudi, Program Director at Onassis ONX, and Loren Hammonds, Head of Documentary at Time Studios. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah.
It's always great to be back at Agog House. Always great to see people showing up as their authentic selves. We love it. And we're really excited to have this conversation today as a sneak peek at the Tribeca Immersive Program. So, I mean, let's jump right in. I'm so glad to be here with Casey and Jazia. I think we'll talk about, this year's program, and we'll talk, a little bit about kind of how it's been put together. But I think it might be kind of fun to to go back first and just give us a little bit of just a brief history of Tribeca Immersive and how it's worked over these years, and we can start from there.
Yeah, I mean, you may have to fact check me on the exact date, but the program itself, as you see it today, actually started with an initiative called Storyscapes, and it was designed as a transmedia program, which was introducing sort of new emerging technologies and new formats and multi IP storytelling to the festival. And that was, I think, the first time and the first introduction to what is now considered the immersive program. And over the years, it has evolved to include different formats, to have different, even physical formats in different venues, different curators, which actually all three of us are represented here, and there's one more to be what it is today.
Yeah, and you mentioned the three curators. I think it's this year's program is really shaped by a very unique collaboration between Tribeca, Onassis ONX, and Agog. It would be it'd be great to kind of talk a little bit about how um, that connection has shaped the program, and
Yeah.
also just how it came about as well.
Yeah, typically what happens in end of summer or early fall-ish, we do a sort of a deep dive at Tribeca, or I do, on what the program could and would look like for the following year's festival. We like to do it sort of in a timely fashion that way, so that we're really looking at the industry as it stands today, looking at the subjects and what the zeitgeist is of what artists what types of projects artists are making as well, and see what we can do to shape a program that is really about, as much as possible, both the needs of the artists and what artists are making work for. And also, there's sort of a macro, I'll say, just sort of a macro conversation that I've been thinking about for the past, I want to say, 3 years, if not more, that we're all, I think, to some degree, I see a lot of friendly faces or slash avatars in here. We're a small community, and to some degree, I think this idea of helping each other, help artists, became really more important, especially as we can see sort of funding and or the landscape changing drastically. And so this year was very much a it takes a village approach. So naturally, I wanted to find strategic partners and partners that could align with both what Tribeca is about, but also provide their own strengths to the areas that the Tribeca, hasn't been able to be as strong in. And of course, I think with Onassis ONX, we found an amazing partner, and Agog, and both bringing to the table, I think, very different attributes that sort of formed and shaped the DNA of what the program is today.
Yeah, I think for Onassis ONX, it's been such a pleasure, and it felt like such an important opportunity to work collaboratively. Onyx, we really position ourselves as a platform and a field builder. So working together with Tribeca, this really important landmark for storytelling and innovation, and Agog, this organization committed to social good, it felt like a really vital moment to work together to look thoughtfully about where the field is and what its potential futures are. I mean, I think, like Casey is saying, in this moment where the landscape is changing and there are times of uncertainty, we also really look to how artists are operating. And as all of you know, like, immersive really isn't achieved unless it's in community and in collaboration. So it felt important to take that message and come together to build this latest evolution and iteration of what has been such a vital, local and international platform for storytelling and advanced technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are really some shared values and priorities amongst all three organizations, which really have continued to emerge in this partnership. what does, to both of you, like what does a successful creative partnership kind of look like in the immersive space, right? Like in terms of process, because I know we have some curators out here already. We have a lot of creators. I think it's good to give a little peek behind the curtain in that way.
Yeah, I can start with that. I think it's shared respect for what each other's respective organizations are doing and what they have done. I also think it's a healthy dialogue, and a very large level of trust, because I think when you're entering into a partnership that, even though you know the other players, there's a fair amount of unknowns that that will be points of disagreement, and disagreement is not a bad thing. It's a healthy thing, actually. It actually helps to challenge us, each other. I'm looking in my avatar is looking at Agog here and looking at Jazia here to basically say, well, we actually haven't thought about it that way. Well, that's interesting. Um, so I think those are, from my perspective, the components that we dove into. We have weekly meetings. I'm at the Onyx, physically at the Onyx studio now. I think Jazia and I are attached at the hip now. We talk a lot about a lot of things, and where there's less about a disagreement, but just a different point of view. It's seeing where we can collaborate and meet in the middle, if you will.
Yeah, I think just to echo what Casey is saying, I think that successful collaborations are really about healthy and open debate. Yeah, we meet every week, we text and email all day long, and I think we were really clear with each other about what each of our kind of institutional priorities were and what we would bring to the table and set aside in the interest of doing something that's bigger than ourselves and not just about one singular brand or one singular perspective. And I think something that Casey and I started talking about a lot, even before the submission process began, was what is our curatorial perspective, and trying to look at and survey where the field is at large. What is our mission here? And we came to something that was really open, but served as a kind of coherent foundation, which was impact-driven storytelling that came from strong perspectives, that spoke to the most pressing needs of artists and within society, and trying to uncover truths and realities that are not always at the surface. So we really thought very carefully about what our responsibilities were to artists in the field and the community at large, both within immersive and the culture going public. So a lot of talking is the shortest answer,
Yeah.
but it's been very involved.
Yeah. I mean, that gives us a great opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about theme. Um, I was super excited to see this year's theme, In Search of Us. Um, and it also, I mean, I heard a lot of what you were just saying, Jazzy. It also seems to possibly center on the idea of connection, and how we are all connected. Uh, why was that the right thematic anchor for this time in 2025?
I think that it felt like the right thing on many levels. I mean, actually, Raul from the Agog team was reading some of the questions that you all submitted beforehand, and several questions touched on, like, asking kind of what is the power of immersive, and one of the big answers is about connection and community, but also about the illumination of storytelling that you can do across the physical and digital elements of our field. So yeah, looking really closely at how story permeates all of us and how engaging in someone else's story builds bridges to connection, whether it has anything to do with your current reality, felt really key to our approach to these projects. And we really held each other accountable in the curatorial process to say, hey, is this project opening up lines of inquiry, opening up lines of understanding, or is it rejecting, or is it too conceptual, or is it too niche? Or so we really pulled together the Venn diagram of projects that pull you both into their world and leave you with a call to action or an enhanced understanding.
Yeah, I mean, my simple version of it is In Search of Us is it feels like actually an instinctual thing that we might all as human beings be thinking about. We just haven't yet, maybe articulated it, but it's deeply personal and individual and universal and timely.
Yeah. I wonder if you could, Jazia, if you could maybe walk us through just a couple of the projects and how they relate to the theme this year. It would be it would be great. I'm super excited. I literally like cannot wait to be at Water Street having these experiences. But if you can just give us a little sneak peek, would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this year we've settled on 11 total projects that are really utilize a range of immersive technologies and are full scale installations. So they all have elements that you can engage with inside and outside of headset, whether depending on how you want to approach them, how passive or active you want to be. One project that feels really vital and is really dynamic is a project called Father's Lullaby by an artist named Rasheen Farhaji. So Rasheen is an artist who really works in community and has been working on communities affected by the carceral state, so by the prison system and systems of incarceration, by looking at families and particularly fathers who have been affected by this kind of systemic situation that we have in the US around incarceration. So she's been collecting stories of families and fathers. She's been recording lullabies. So she's building this really dynamic installation in which you will see these projections of these fathers telling these stories that she's collected, and then much more personal moments of individual interaction where you can put headphones on and hear stories. And then outside of the core of the installation, you'll be invited to contribute your own song or lullaby to contribute to kind of collective knowledge and communion around the ways that the carceral state impacts every one of us, whether you've been, literally affected or not. So that's a very powerful work that really delves into this difficult topic and these topics around loss, but then invites you to join a community towards healing. So, one of In Search of Us's big messages is that community and communication are one avenue towards healing some of these wounds. Another piece that some of you may have seen this year is called In the Current of Being by Cameron Kostopoulos. This work is a VR piece. It deals with it tells the story of a woman, Caroline Mercer, who underwent conversion therapy because her gender identity was treated as a sickness. So in headset, you also put on this haptic vest, and over the course of her narration, you feel literal vibrations that kind of replicate to some degree her experience of conversion therapy. Then when you get out of the headset, there'll be this offboarding space / a community space where you can sit down, read some materials from the Trevor Project and other organizations supporting people who have gone through conversion therapy, and hopefully talk to your neighbor who you were next to in headset and talk about your experience and your thoughts around this. So both of these projects have kind of these literal immersive moments, and then these moments afterwards that are kind of call to action, calls to communication with the other people that are in the exhibition and experiencing them alongside you. One thing that I didn't mention about Father's Lullaby is, in addition to the moment outside of the installation where you're invited to contribute your story or lullaby, there's also an augmented reality experience that takes place around New York City. So several of the projects in the exhibition invite you to take its artworks and its messaging outside of the exhibition space itself and find it out in New York City.
Mm.
So that was part of our thinking about one of the powers of immersive as a medium for expansion beyond site specificity. So you can take these projects out in the world, or you can encounter them out in the world and find yourself back in the exhibition.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. You have so many different formats. You have different, obviously, different ways of creating these projects. Is there something that you think um, is revealing about kind of the way that immersive creators are looking at storytelling based on the technical aspects of the projects that you've seen this season?
I think what something that we're seeing, and Casey, I'm curious to know what you think too here, is that Um, I think an indication of the health of the field and something that's making me feel really positive is seeing how thoughtfully creators are approaching technology and less focused on novelty, though there is a lot of frontier tech and a lot of thought about kind of what's next in the avant-garde, but really thinking about
Mhm.
how to use technological tools to facilitate story and connection rather than necessarily going for shock value or going just purely for amazement or entertainment. That they're really thinking beyond novelty and thinking about how technology as a tool and a medium can bring more to their stories, bring more to their aesthetics, and bring more to the experiences of their work. So I think we're in a really positive and healthy phase in terms of how artists are thinking about immersive.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and I
Casey,
would
for you, oh yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I wanted you to expand on that, but also, for you, and for the festival, right? Tribeca has
Mm-hmm.
always been known for kind of elevating the physical exhibition. So
Mm-hmm.
with a new space at Water Street, how does that kind of um, you know dovetail into some of the things that Jazia was talking about the revelations that you're feeling about the way that people are presenting their work?
Yeah, I think what I am seeing and have been seeing, I think over the past few years, if not more, is this convergence of different industries that are sort of coming into or are embracing emerging or immersive technology to either tell stories or create art. So never before has there been more, I think, conversations in the visual and digital art spaces, in the performative
Hmm.
spaces, in the, I don't even know, I guess you can now call it traditional extended reality, which is such a weird word to use that as almost the traditional format, but to see the tools and the skills that are brought to the table from the different backgrounds of all the artists and perspectives. I am seeing that a lot of the projects and the artists are approaching the work holistically related to the physical and the digital. So, where it could be the thought process is we have a digital project now, how do we expand it to the physical? It's actually now a conversation about physical and digital together, and
Mm.
there's not a priority over one or the other, because I think the idea of the goal and the hope is that these projects will have a life, these artists will have a life after Tribeca, after any festival, and live in a physical space, be also centers of conversation for communities, not in New York City, in other places in the US and other places in the world. And that ultimately, to some degree, is actually a very physical exercise.
Yeah.
And so the installation aspect is um, the ability for, I think, artists to either explore what that physicality can look like and or chew on the potential of what that might look like in a museum, in another festival, in the streets of you know, LA, Paris, Tokyo, wherever that may be,
Yeah.
to be able to do that simultaneously.
Yeah. But time is flying by. I want to keep asking you guys questions, but I think we're going to open up to the audience. But we did have some questions that came in through the portal earlier, so maybe we'll start with those. And actually, I think we're at a good point actually to segue into one of those. I think someone had asked. More or less a little bit about advice and the kind of thinking that it takes to be able to start a festival, right? Or to
Mhm.
take an organization or a space that you have and really like build an exhibition around that. And I think
Yeah.
both of you have demonstrated how beautifully that can be done. Onyx has regular exhibitions throughout the year, which is amazing. It's something that in my opinion, is very it's missing, right, in a lot of places, and we're very lucky to have that here in New York City, where the three of us are. But if both of you could kind of speak to that and just give people a little bit of a nudge of how they might go about it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
My first thought, and again, this is, I think, my perspective and my approach, and it's actually fascinating to hear other heads of festivals and programmers approach, because I think we'll probably have a healthy variance. Is actually to think very specifically about where you are in the world, and also what very specifically you want to deliver when featuring immersive work. Is this really about cultivating artists at an industry level and allowing the showcase to be an industry level support and network? Is this about bringing immersive art to audiences that have never seen immersive work? It's more of a sort of a general audience conversation. So what? Because I think the strategy should be work backwards from what you really want to accomplish as an organization, where you are, and who your nearest, not nearest, but what what resources do you have at hand, both in the venue, both in
Right.
local partners,
Mhm.
and then of course strategic partners outside of that. And typically, the answers to those questions fall in line once you have answered that singular question to some degree. Because I think
Yeah,
that the immersive field can be, it's very broad. It can be very broad,
Hmm.
and we can acknowledge as any human being that there's a bandwidth and a focus that I think doubling down on a focus and really driving that home is probably the most effective. And also where you fit within the structure of an artist's life, beginning phases, works in progress, or end phases. Not end phases, there's never an end, but a phase where a premiere has happened and it's about really allowing for general audiences to experience works that have been out in the world, but or is it a specific theme you want to really focus on related to immersive work?
Yeah, I think, something that the three of us spoke about in one of our planning sessions was this like wonderful term of site responsive
Hmm.
work, right? So one of the creators, actually Rasheen, who did Father's Lullaby, introduced me to this term site responsive as kind of an evolution of site specific. So I think, yeah, what Casey you're really talking to is that we really thought about our exhibition and what is its site responsiveness to to New York as an exhibition within New York vis-a-vis the creators that we're bringing and the industry at large. And so one of the things, in that kind of analysis for us this year, that led to some of our determinations, like we're having our tickets are $20. So rather than having a pass, sometimes can be prohibitively expensive. We're having $20 tickets that feels more in line with, cultural events around New York, to try to have a big and broad audience. And then also extending the show through the end of June felt like another invitation to broaden the audience, make sure that the professional audience is able to come. And then we have the additional weekends really for New York, for school groups, for community groups to come in and feel a part of it. And then another aspect of that site responsiveness is, as you're saying, Casey, this thought about wanting to build full-scale installations that bridge physical and digital elements that are ready to travel and find their way into other cultural institutions, museums, festivals, libraries. So that was our kind of response to the physical site of New York City, to where Tribeca is and where the field is.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of centering your curation in many ways on the audience, right? It's a starting point. So I think that is great advice to anyone wherever you are, to work with what you have and work with who you believe you can get to come and experience the work as well. Raul, can you share one more of the questions from the portal?
I can, yeah. So there's a question here about current challenges in XR programming for a festival. And it seems like there's a sub question here about splitting those challenges between the curatorial or programmatic team and then the challenges for the creator themselves.
Yeah, I can start with that. It's I think I even joked earlier, like, where to start. There are a lot of challenges in producing XR work at a festival. I think
No.
no, we're all intimately aware. I think for this section, if you will, um, if I do maybe a comparison to some of the other sections, has a lot more moving parts. You know, you have to think about the resources that you have, the literal physical space that you can present in, the support and the ability for the artist to both make the work, to be able to bring it to a festival, and making that a benefit and not a burden. All of those factors are really things that I think are also challenges, because we do have, we are always impacted as a festival, or any festival, I think, is impacted by the general landscape of support for the artists too. So, because if there's not support for artists, there's not support to create work and then bring, financial support to bring work to festivals. Therefore, we also can't do our jobs very well to be able to feature that. So we have to actually think from the beginning of the project to the end, and even concepting what an XR exhibition or showcase would look like at a festival. And that's where I think, the this I'll just do a callback to the partnerships here, where Onassis ONX is like just an incredible community builder, as well as cultivator of artists that are earlier stages than sometimes we see at the festival. Of course, we scout and look year round, and then you have Agog and group in the team who are just like leading the charge and exploring the work and funding and being a real backbone for artists even to be able to continue to create work. And so it takes that even early stage pipeline to even think about the festival side, which is pretty rare, I think, in just producing work at a festival. And then I'll just one more acknowledge, we're in New York City, one of the most difficult places to produce physical exhibitions in the world, and so that definitely informs how we're able to think about every year.
Yeah. Jazia, do you want to add anything to the current challenges, and maybe even, how you've seen them change recently? Because I think we all know in this community and in this industry, everything moves so incredibly fast. So I'm sure you've seen the evolution of challenges just in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I think, I think Casey covered it really well, but yeah, I think the one of the primary challenges, the kind of constant rethinking that you have to do about your purpose and function, that even a legacy institution can't remain static in the kind of times that we live in, from the funding landscape, the political landscape, the social landscape. So that resource question becomes really critical when you consider yourself part of community and think about your responsibility. So, festivals can take so many forms, but I'm really proud of the scale this year, because we can say to ourselves that we've brought 11 projects. It's not 200 projects. It's but it's the amount that we are kind of know that we can commit to support for before, during, and after the festival, and make sure that there's a life, that none of these creators are going to eke across the line, that there's a rich life for them during the festival and afterwards. So taking into consideration, the financial and the human resources that we really
Yes.
had, and asking ourselves these hard questions: how much can we really do? Which is hard because we're all ambitious. Was hopefully the key to our success this year.
Yeah, and Loren,
Yeah.
you hit it on the head in terms of the landscape changing so fast. It's not unusual for us to start every year with the question, what is immersive these days?
Mhm.
And it's very, so
Yeah.
to even start there, because it does change so rapidly in different formats, different technologies, as well as different approaches, are pretty specific as well to, I think, the immersive space.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think what you said too, Jazia, is true. And I think it's worth everyone noting that when it comes to exhibitions, when it comes to curation, right, it's not that bigger is it's usually bigger is not better, right? It's having a very clear curatorial vision and being able to commit. So I'm very excited that this is a manageable program that hopefully everyone can come to and experience every bit of it, and really have a chance to kind of dive in and understand all of the nuance, as opposed to racing around and feeling that inevitable FOMO that comes from a lot of XR exhibitions. This is a great time that we can open it to the audience now. So if you have a question, just raise your hand up nice and high, and I'll call on you. We can have a conversation. Don't be shy. Yeah, Peter.
I'm going to be cheeky and ask two questions, if I may. Firstly, for those of us that can't get to New York for June, did you ever consider a kind of opened accessibility, like an online access to some of these projects? Was that something that you talked to the artists about, maybe building into the projects? And secondly, what for you would be in the post-festival wash up a successful festival? Is that like bums on seats, critical response, or potential expansion of the festival next year?
So I'll dive into these. Peter is a great question about the accessibility for people who are not in New York or not able to come. Um, I wish and I hope that that we can have a big kind of online portal one of these days where you'd be able to experience the works. That's not the case this year, but two of the projects do have web experiences that are part of them, that are online, that we will be advertising, so you can get a taste of things. Though the and hopefully, I hope that next time I have a more satisfactory answer into an exhibition that you can dive into virtually, or maybe we'll do it in VR chat one of these days. That would be cool. Um, but can you repeat your second question for me?
It was sort of what after the festival, looking back, what would be a successful festival? Is that sort of numbers of attendees? Is that like critical response? Is it potentially an expansion of the festival next year with, like, more kind of support on board?
What for me would be a big success is, yeah, definitely a population that's around, and a critical response, really in the hope that this is a matter of discussion. I hope everyone loves every installation, but what's more important to me is that you be interested and have things to say about every installation. And I'm not afraid. I don't think any of us are afraid of taking criticism or having a hard conversation. But one of my biggest hopes is that all the projects that are in this edition have an afterlife, and that we create avenues for an expansion really for those creators, is more important to me than necessarily an upscaling for us as the next ambition.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then to sort of touch upon your first question, Peter, I think, some of the projects in the space, they're multimedia formats, they're physical multimedia installations. So they don't necessarily lend themselves well to an online portal. But the way I was thinking about it, we were thinking about it, was very specifically thinking about projects that we hope and intend to try to support with all of our being, the ability to have a life where you live. So who is the curator? Where is the closest institution that you could physically see that project? Not, at Tribeca, but because of Tribeca, said curator has come, identified it, and said, I'm going to bring this anywhere from Poughkeepsie, New York to Paris, France, wherever that may be. And to me, the metric of success, the slow burn, of course, is to see these projects have a life in other institutions. I think the most visceral metric of success is less that the exhibition is packed. It's that I'm seeing new faces. I'm seeing new people and looking at this like, wow, I actually don't know half of the people in this room, and that's awesome. This is the first time they're seeing something like this. Or I don't know some of the institutions who might be interested in this work, and this is the first time that they're seeing it. To me, is the most easy takeaway. And then, of course, always, press and good feedback is just helpful to the whole agenda. But those are the two things for me.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Deirdre. Hi, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. It's good to see you.
Good to
I
see
just
you
had
too.
a quick question. I know there was a big pivot last year, and all of the submitted projects were put aside, and there was an adjustment to go in a different direction. I assume that this year was also one of those sort of invite only situations. Is that correct? This was an invite only and festival where there wasn't a portal for anybody to submit their projects to. And is that a sort of a plan to continue? Is to do sort of an invite only, if that is still the case?
No, not necessarily. I think this consideration process is dictated by ultimately the format and the strategy that is landed upon. A lot of these conversations, as I said, just by the nature of how we strategically think about things at the festival, they don't happen necessarily in a 5-year plan. There's certainly 5-year goals, 10-year goals, all those things. But we really have to look in that sort of fall term and see what we can plan against for the upcoming edition. So for instance, depending on formats, it changes the nature of how we're able to format the sort of submission process, if you will. And so this year, yes, was an invite to submit, but it's not necessarily predetermined that will be the future of how we'll look at projects.
Great, thank you.
So before we jump off, I think I'd like to go back to the macro. I think we've touched on a lot of this before, but it's always just so valuable to hear a curatorial perspective at a 30,000 foot view. What do you think cultural institutions and organizations, what kind of responsibilities do you think we have for this immersive community? This is I always see it as incredibly inspirational, but also sometimes tenuous, right? We are working very hard to make work that is often not as seen as we'd like it to be. So just thinking in those terms, if you could give us one takeaway in terms of what you think these responsibilities are and how we can all work together to support each other to actually fulfill those.
I think what's really critical now more than ever is to really listen to artists and take the lead from them. I think that especially when the world feels dark, or it feels like there are systems in place that are too strong for us to oppose, or taking us down collectively and individually pathways that feel less than human. It's really artists who provide solutions and the alternatives to that kind of thinking. So I think it's really critical more than ever that we make the space, as curators in our lives that get swallowed up sometimes by admin and operations, to listen really, really carefully to artists about what they're thinking about and what they really need. And that's what we've really tried to do here, and hopefully have succeeded in some degree doing this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just as an institution, and I think about this responsibility a lot, it's being honest with ourselves as to how much we can do, not over-promising and not over-accolading, but just laying it straight, because I think we're all in this together. We all face challenges, and the way that we can work through that is to really be as timely and with every ability that we have to have the open conversation.
And I think, yeah, one kind of addendum or thought coming out of that, and something that we certainly talked about, was in terms of our responsibility as institutional leaders and people who have some degree of power in what we do, is not being afraid to take risks. That I think self-censorship is something that is very insidious and happens very quickly, and that we have the responsibility to promote thoughtful and open speech and dialogue. So it's not the time to cower in fear, within our capacity to be really open and to promote speech and protect artists, expressing themselves.
I love that. What a great takeaway. So thank you so much, Jazia. Thank you so much, Casey, for joining us today and for sharing about the program and sharing your ideas. Thank you to Agog, as always, for hosting us in this amazing space. I hope everyone gets an opportunity to, if you are lucky enough to be in New York City, to experience the program during Tribeca. If you are not in New York City, please stay connected so that you know where you can experience those components that will travel, and always stay connected to your creative community and the creative community beyond you. And now I think we're gonna mingle, yeah, Raul?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So in that same spirit, let's keep connecting with one another. I challenge folks to go up to somebody that you don't recognize or don't know, strike up a conversation, and find a corner in the world just to keep chatting. And certainly appreciate all of our speakers for doing the same. And thanks you all for being here.
Thank you, Loren.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.